Hello everyone, I am Crawlers and this is another episode of Ridiculous Loadout. As you may already know, this is a series I started way back when in the Battlefield 3 days, basically whoring myself out for cheap views, running a suggested loadout from one of you in the comments section. Now, mostly this is a not so tactical series where most of the loadouts are either bad or troll or just plain ugly looking. Rarely I get a chance to try out a kit, a combination that I haven't thought of before, and maybe have good results with it. Mostly not though. So this time an interesting and very specific loadout kit was suggested by a Masha Malasheva in Russian no less, of a loadout called Russian Spetznaz. And this is actually a well laid out loadout for once, and not a troll or a rage quit inducing suggestion like most of the others. Although there's still, some things I would have done differently, but this is a solid kit. There are a lot of good choices here. So, as you can see, it consists of the AKU-12 in Battlefield 4, which I'm sure is the AK-12U carbine version of the AK-12 assault rifle in real life, much like the AKS-74U was a carbine version of the AK-74. And for anyone not speaking Russian here, the U stands for Ukorocheny, or shortened. Now, besides the obvious AKU-12 in Battlefield 4, Masha also suggested I equip the Chinese Coyote sight, which is kind of similar to the Western Red Dot, except in Battlefield 4 it's arguably, better, because it covers up less of the screen. Also, I have the laser of my choice, which turned out to be an easy choice because the red laser was all I had unlocked. Also, the muzzle brake and the foregrip of my choice. Now, I chose the folding grip for this run to dampen the first shot multiplier a bit, so maybe, the burst firing would be easier. But frankly, I didn't tap fire that much, so I could have gone with any other grip. Now, as I said before, I don't actually like equipping the laser on my guns, outside the PDWs maybe, that much, because I feel like there's just too little benefit for it, and, the drawback is that it's very easy to spot you and gives away your position in a hurry. And again, the laser's only benefit is in hip firing mode, which is mostly of no use to me because, I try to ADS on my targets before firing, which again is harder to do because the Fakakta laser reveals my position earlier than I wanted to. Now, in this setup, I was also to use the Rex revolver as my sidearm, which, to be honest, I think I never got a chance to use. And on it I have the tactical light, which is kind of like the flashlight, except it turns on automatically when you ADS, a muzzle brake, and the Delta red dot sight. Now, also with me I have the spawn beacon, some C4, the RGO impact grenades, the machete, and the Spec Ops field upgrade, because I was to play as a recon, since in Battlefield 4 the AKU-12 is classified as a carbine and I can equip it with any class. So, to take a look under the hood of the AKU-12, it's really not that special in the Battlefield 4 world. I mean, it does a standard carbine damage of 25 at 8 meters, which drops off to 15.4 at 50 meters. It has a 30 round magazine, firing the 545 round at 450 meters a second of muzzle velocity, at a standard full auto RPM of 680 rounds per minute, and burst firing at 750. Now, this is actually an interesting feature of the AKU-12 in Battlefield 4, and maybe the only one that makes it worthwhile and makes it stand out among other carbines. It has 3 firing modes as opposed to only 2 for most of the others. One of them being burst fire, and when switching to this firing mode, it increases your rate of fire some, namely by 70 rounds per minute. Now, which is just over 1 round per second, obviously. So, of course, burst firing is an interesting feature that's been a little tweaked in Battlefield 4 as opposed to other FPS games. In Battlefield 4, to give the burst fire mode some advantage over full auto, they started applying the first shot multiplier to the last shot of the burst. So essentially what happened before was the first shot in the burst got a lot of recoil, and the rest had their usual per shot recoils for every shot. Now what happens now is all except the last shots have the regular per shot recoil, and the last one has the first shot multiplied recoil. This is an interesting approach, but still not enough in my opinion, as now it's a little bit easier to put all 3 shots on target. Well, you might lose the target between bursts. And as you might expect, the folding grip usually helps with the first shot multiplier. Effectively, it gives you less of a chance to lose your target in between bigger recoil in between the bursts. Now, usually I'm not one to use the built-in burst fire mode on these carbines. My best fire mode controller is my index finger, not the computer. So I usually try to just step fire these weapons. My reasoning behind this is that you have less control over your ammo when burst firing, because 3 shots are going to come out of the gun no matter what with each click. So, and if you're good enough at tap firing, usually you can use less ammo before finding yourself empty, which is kind of what happened to me this round. Now, the AKU-12 also has a tactical reload time of 2.05 seconds and a full reload time of 3 seconds, which is obviously not very short. And interestingly enough, it also has the lowest recoil up among all carbines, namely 0.24 up. Other than that, the laser sight does improve the hipfire accuracy some, but I'm sorry I didn't include a specific number here because I'm not exactly sure how it interacts with other accessories, so I didn't include the stats. So the AKU-12, being a variant of the AK-12 assault rifle, it has some similar traits going for it in Battlefield 4. Other things are going to be a little different. For example, it has quite a bit less hipfire spread than the AK, a bit higher full auto rate of fire, and slightly less recoil in all 3 directions. AK-12, on the other hand, has a bit more minimum damage than the AKU-12 and a bit further damage drop-off range. It also has a 33% higher muzzle velocity, meaning, among other things, greater effective range. Other stats are pretty much the same for both the AK-12 and the AKU-12 in Battlefield 4. Now, as for the Rex revolver, that's my secondary right now. Well, in the case of Battlefield 4, it's just not very good. There is a reason I haven't really used it before. The problem is, it looks kind of okay on paper, sporting an incredible 56 damage, maximum damage at 15 meters, which drops off to 28 at 37 meters. And it has a 400 meters a second muzzle velocity. And while this is technically better than Battlefield 3 Rex stats, that's all it really has going for it. Its rate of fire is a horrible 180 rounds per minute, whereas it was 255 in Battlefield 3. And you see, the problem is deeper than that. The stupid time delay in Battlefield 4 that affects all revolvers is especially horrible in the Rex. And I still can't understand why DICE thought it would be a good idea for revolvers to have a delay between clicking the mouse and the actual bullet firing. And while I think they were trying to represent the hammer moving backwards when you click the mouse and then moving forward to actually strike the shell, I mean, this isn't how it looks in real life. If you look for some fast revolver firing videos on YouTube, you will see a guy firing a revolver 6 times in 1 second. I mean, the delay is complete and utter bullshit. It makes the revolvers nearly impossible to use, especially on moving targets. And well, DICE patched the delay some in one of their recent patches. It's still not nearly enough. They should definitely bring back the Battlefield 3 model, I think. And speaking of the Battlefield 3 Rex, the Rex in Battlefield 4 is just crap compared to the one we had before. It has a much higher vertical recoil, namely 2, and a much lower rate of fire, as I said, and it also has the slowest recoil idle reset time, namely 6 degrees per second. Now, in Battlefield 3, it was 10 degrees per second, so a much quicker recovery was possible after you stopped firing, which, coupled with a lower vertical recoil, made it a good choice. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Ridiculous Loadout, and now, because I don't feel like suffering alone, Masha must also run this loadout and upload it to YouTube, and I'll accept the link down in the comments section below. So thanks for watching. Please rate and share this video as it helps my channel grow. Check out my other videos at the end of this one. And remember, in Soviet Russia, YouTube subscribes you.